I don't much go to church anymore. Well, I don't go. I haven't been in years. I guess I don't get it anymore. It's not so much that I don't see the value in liturgy, scripture reading, homilies, and the worth in worship. I very much love the idea of communal worship where we celebrate the love of God as the love of neighbor. And maybe that's the problem. This sort of worship is merely an idea, a euphoric dream masquerading bitterness, spitefulness, prejudice, and the rest of the coup of deplorables as nice and well-mannered Christians. Has anyone explained why vaccines are mandated by the love of neighbor, that Jesus never owned a gun, and the passage in the Gospel of Matthew that Mary's false prophets and self-deception is obvious to everyone except Trump followers, Fox News viewers, and tinfoil hat vendors? Willed ignorance, assurances as proof, the malleability of facts. Whatever lingering good news has stomached too much. The church needs to shut the bathroom door and vomit. When the church again becomes more intolerant and one-sided, maybe I'll be interested. When I was a preacher, I'd hear certain spiritual seekers say that their church is the outdoors. They posited something romantic, like being on a mountaintop or watching the sunrise on an empty beach, the lifting of an early morning fog, all the redolent benage for granola hikers and tree bark enthusiasts. I'd smile politely and genuinely agree that such sentiments were agreeable, and that did well enough to placate the moment. Spirituality means little beyond warming hands with a hot cup of coffee on a cold morning in the absence of a theological rubric. I wanted to know how a pine cone articulated a soteriological consummation, or how a wildflower spoke the truth of divine unity. Did these spiritual seekers bother with such questions when walking between the pews of pine trees? Or was it just about fresh air? Of course they didn't, and well, of course they did. It was about fresh air. Vested in my sanctimonious Geneva gown of turned tassels and academic hoods, ecclesiological ziggurats harvested greater legitimacy than the breath of life. They didn't ask the right questions as far as I was concerned, because they never asked the questions the way I would have. The way questions should be asked. Their epiphanies always seemed a sensual, intuitive conversation, an inner dialogue between setting and character. To me, that was unqualified caprice, and as such, call it revelation, insight, or reverie, it lacked the necessary guardrails of doctrine and reason, and sufficed poorly as authority. Sometimes I feel exiled from a country that never existed. A shadow goes walking before me, and I am left helpless but to chase it in vain. It's the sort of defeat that suffered no battle, a truce without peace. There I go, and I cannot help but follow. My shadow leads. Sometimes I believe that chasing shadows is the same triumph of the cross. But as soon as I feel the texture of that conviction piercing the palms of my hand, my self-painted stigmata vanishes in my self-celebrating acedia. I'm not a saint and want of persecution. I complain of inconvenience with the wails of dereliction. I'm petty because of pettiness, but I'm upright and virtuous because righteousness is judgmental and angry. The woods behind my house write the script. They speak of God and prophecies, like the mystics inflicted with a hand pulling the curtain back. The similarities end. I hear the voice, but do not comprehend. Winter's aegis, the seasons vacillate, a second-hand god pilfering my idled mind I do not understand. I wonder if the alligators swim underneath the veneer of January's ice and call that meditation. If only God were sonic, I think. The sound of my boot through foliage or the changing lens of my camera, wide to narrow, back to wide, slide through grooves, linking, click, fastened. A tactile God could be the grit of crinkled up leaves chipped smaller and smaller in the palm of my hand. The slits and nicks, the lacerations from exposed, chapped hands grabbing God in the cold, like a moved rock or a fallen branch. The glint of sunshine through the needles of pines, molded by clouds and sunsets, shafts of life, crepuscular rays, so-called God rays, harmonizing an arrangement of ambers to magentas. There's an unexpected love and respect we share for one another when we say, "You don't belong here." I did really poorly at this as a pastor. Like the man who told me turning the other cheek was bullshit, or the other man who said giving away 10% of his income was cruel to those in need. I thought, well, if they keep coming, maybe one day they'll get Jesus. Now they still go to church, and I don't. The woods behind my house, this new temple where I sometimes go, is pleading too. Get out. Get out. You don't belong here.